Thomas Frank era is underway, and underway with the potential arrival of Eberechi Eze, the man who scored in the FA Cup quarter-final, the FA Cup semi-final and the final itself. A release clause of 60 million is what's being reported amongst a handful of sources, as Spurs look to use the pull of the Champions League to fine effect. So Eberechi Eze, as you may already know and as you may already be aware, is an incredibly skillful, expressive, attacking midfielder who operates on the left side of Palace's front three. Palace are a very counter-attacking, defensively and transitionally strong team. Eze's role within Glasner's setup consists of following his out-of-possession principles that helps make the shape very compact and tricky, then carrying the ball forwards some yards before introducing his brilliance to the final third. This can sometimes be arriving in the box late, like his FA Cup winning goal versus Man City, or driving into space very effectively. But this isn't to say that Eze is reliant on huge amounts of spaces and less opponents to score goals. The 26-year-old is an excellent dribbler in tight spaces, allowing him to glide by multiple players in key areas, whether that's in the final third or from deep. So there should be no worries surrounding his quality against low blocks and crowded boxes, as Eze can combine very fluidly with teammates, create, dribble through and also shoot the goal himself. Whenever he's come on for England against those teams that prioritise more defensive numbers, he's been a huge spark every time in finding that way through. And his quality can be found everywhere, against different teams, in different environments and different scenarios. Eze's a real master in progressing that ball, and his level of composure, comfort in all phases of the pitch is why Tottenham want him so badly. Who wouldn't? This is someone who shares that premium bit of quality when we look at players in those attacking spaces, and overall is a player that gets you off your seat. He's magic. He brings the ball down with a breezing sense of ease. He then keeps the ball so close to his feet, looking to tease with his right foot, but ready to use his low centre of gravity to twist, to turn absolutely wherever. This is a street-like footballer that just embodies the look of somebody who would be really good on five-a-side. If we compare Eberechi Eze to Tottenham's existing number 10, James Maddison, this is what we get. They are both fairly similar players with the same intentions out there on the pitch, but the differences for me is that Eze is more available and not injury prone, Eze turns up in the bigger games more, and Maddison goes down a lot more, looking to draw and initiate that contact, proven by Maddison drawing 3.17 fouls per 90 compared to Eze's 1.77. But Ange and Thomas Frank are pretty different, so it's not much good looking at Maddison statistically. Spurs had an average of 54.8% possession last season, Palace had 42.6%. They are completely different teams, which also just shows Eze's quality even more, considering per 90, Maddison averages nearly 10 extra touches in the final third. But who would be useful to look at in these numbers is of course Mikkel Damsgaard. Damsgaard is an immensely creative outlet for Brentford and was integral for Thomas Frank this season, probably breaking through as Brentford's most important player, along with mbeumo. So what does he do? Damsgaard's role consisted of creating for Brentford, obviously, but he'd drop in deep when Brentford looked to build out, averaging 10.23 touches in the defensive third per 90, then 26.68 in the middle third. He'd drop in deep, freely, pick up the ball, looking to drag away opponents to create space for others. Mbeumo's goal against Brentford sums this right up. He pulls in players, creating space both for Norgard and Lewis Potter to move into, acting as the catalyst for the move that then transpires. Damsgaard and Eze statistically share some differences, but also match in most areas, as Eze is much more direct, whilst Damsgaard is a little more creative that dictates play more. But the two play in different styles. Eze can drop in just as well, beat players and consume opponents in. Eze, as we can see, overall stronger when it comes to scoring, creating, influence in that final third. Eze is much better at beating his man with his take-ons, meaning he has to be fouled more, with both involving themselves in scrappy pieces of play, duels and turnovers as much as the other. Both aren't very different, they just share different roles in different teams in different tactical styles. But let's demonstrate as to how this is going to work tactically with Eberechi Eze and turn around and have a look at the tactics board. So as you can see, we've got Tottenham Hotspur and their starting 11. That is a version that Thomas Frank could use. I think there's a lot of players here that he will like. You've got Matthias Tell, of course a lot of people are a little bit debatable about him and the competition such as Heung-min Son, but I don't think they'd assign him on a permanent if Thomas Frank didn't rate him. You've got Brennan Johnson, who he desperately wanted at Brentford, to the point they were putting very high bids in for him. You've got Eze, of course, they're very linked to, Solanke, who could be his Ivan Toney, Bergvall, Porro. The only player here I'm a little bit unsure about is Bentancur. I still think they need that defensive midfielder that can win the duels, that can progress the ball forwards, but it's not the end of the world. Thomas Frank can utilise the best out of what he's got. But there's many different approaches that we can look at here. You've got James Maddison, you've got Kulusevski, Son, Archie Gray, and one that I wanted to look at with you is the role of Archie Gray. Now a lot of people for some reason don't rate Archie Gray. I think he's a fantastic young player who had to play everywhere. He had to compromise for the amount of injuries that were going on in Ange's team. Ultimately, because of Ange's style, it was so physically demanding. But what I want to have a look at here is that Thomas Frank used Keane Lewis Potter as a left back last year due to the fact that Rico Henry was injured, and with that he's a winger. He doesn't want to be there that much, so he pushed him right up in possession and he pushed the left centre midfielder into the back line to create a free, essentially to cover for him, like a half-back role on Football Manager if you're familiar. So this is something that could be done with Pedro Porro as well. Of course, Porro, immensely attacking, fantastic player. So if you get Porro into these positions just here, combining with Brennan Johnson, I think this would be fantastic for starters. But you know, you push this sort of high line, whatever. You can have Archie Gray here, Romero, and then Van der Ven in that favoured left-footing wide back position, if you like to say. I think this would be tremendously effective. You got Bentancur just in and around here in that sort of lone-like pivot, but Archie Gray is fantastic in these roles. He's very composed on the ball, he's a good ball playing defender, and I think he knows exactly when to pounce into play. So I think this would be really, really cool to see, and it's something that I can genuinely see happening. Of course, on the other flank, when this happens, a doggy will push right up with Matthias Tell, and I think it will still be a case of Archie Gray moving into the back line, but Porro just hangs back a bit. That is something that was very common with Brentford. If the right back goes forward, the left back stays fairly cautious. But if we move back onto what we're discussing today, and what we're discussing today is Eberechi Eze, we understand now what Thomas Frank wants in his number 10 through Mikkel Damsgaard. Eze is going to be very free in this role. He's going to be picking the ball up in different spaces, ultimately inviting others into play very effectively. And one of the ways he's going to do that is through Tottenham's low build-up. Now I imagine it's going to be a shape such as this, because this is exactly what it was at Brentford. It was a 4-2-2 like shape, or 4-2-4 if you want to say. So this would be the positions. You got Porro and a doggy sort of wide. You got Bentancur and Bergvall helping them play out. So you've got 7 players here really helping them progress through the lines and really move into that next phase of play. But what's going to help here is the role of Eberechi Eze, as we know. He's going to drop in deep around here. You'll have Solanke, you know, staying high. He's not going to move too much, but maybe you can have Brennan Johnson high and wide. As Brennan Johnson, as we know, is an excellent runner. He's fantastic within his timing. And this is something that he did do with mbeumo at Brentford. Sometimes, not all the time, you'd literally have mbeumo just staying high so that they could play that direct ball, and that was very effective at times, as you can see by their counter-attacking goal versus Brighton in the second half. But Matthias Tell can drop in a little bit deeper, have a little bit more influence on the ball, as we know, he's a little bit more technical, quick feet, he's good receiving the ball. So I think there's a lot of potential here, but let's just add an opposition to really demonstrate this idea a little bit more clearly. So as you can see, we've got an opposition now, and as you can see, Eze's role isn't going to change. He's going to drop in deep to receive the ball, or drop in deep simply just to consume players for the sake of it. And he's going to bring players into him, which will create space for the likes of Bergvall. But not only just the midfield, it's going to be Porro, it's going to be a doggy, it's going to be any of the midfielders, because They want to progress the ball. They want to get to that next phase. Thomas Frank isn't this huge playing out from the back manager. He wants his team to get up the pitch and start attacking as soon as possible. His teams are very fun to watch. This isn't a hugely stubborn, hipster-like manager of today. But it's not just Eze who can do this. Matthias Tell can drop in and he can really bring his fullback away to create space for the likes of a doggy flying up. Brennan Johnson can stay in high and wide, so this will create space for Porro to run into as well. I think there's a lot to work with here, and I think Thomas Frank is going to have a lot of fun at Tottenham Hotspur. And of course, Tottenham Hotspur fans are going to have fun watching Tottenham. But if we shift into something that we're likely going to see at Tottenham Hotspur, it's going to be them facing low blocks, them facing very difficult defences. You've got so many good defensive teams such as Crystal Palace, as we know, so it's not going to exactly be easy. You're not going to have the space as often as he has at Brentford, but Thomas Frank is a coach that has adapted to pretty much every level he's been at so far. Despite this one, of course. But he coached very possession-based football in the Championship, and he coached it to success. Then he moved to more counter-attacking style, and then he's evolved at Brentford to allow them to be a much more enjoyable Premier League competitive outlet that doesn't rely on their defence, on their shape to get points. So as you can see here, we've now got a low block, and this is probably something as to what it's going to look like. Eze, for me, is going to be a key outlet in breaking down those low blocks, especially Matthias Tell and Eze on similar sides of the pitch. They both want to tease with their right foot, and Eze, as we know, combines with players fantastically, so there's a lot of potential here, and you can really shift those overloads across, really forcing your way through. But this isn't the threat that Eze has completely. Of course, he can combine very well, he can dribble through, but he can shoot from the edge of the box, he can find those passes. As we know, he's very creative. He has less time to attack with Crystal Palace because they're a counter-attacking outfit. They share less possession, so his clinical nature in these phases is going to be really key, and not just with him, but with James Maddison. Although it seems like I've been a little bit disrespectful to Maddison in this video, Maddison is fantastic at racking up goals and assists. That is just a complete knack. He's got that quality in the final third. He certainly knows where the goal is. So I'm a big fan of him in this aspect. But Eze and Maddison as options for me just elevates Tottenham even more. Eze will be a key in breaking down those difficult spaces. You've got good flexibility here. You've got Johnson, who's a little bit more of a runner, who can box crash and be a little bit effective. You've got a tall, big, strong number 9 who can hold up the play, who can control chaos in the box, and you can aim for on the crosses. Of course, Eze you can aim for on crosses. You can do a little bit of everything with Eberechi Eze, with fantastic threat out wide. Thomas Frank, if given the time at Tottenham, has a lot he can do here. I think there'll be a very promising outfit for next season, and I think Tottenham fans should be very excited for what's coming. Eze is a type of signing that you may not look at Tottenham's squad and you think they need. I personally think they need a defensive midfielder more. But this is a signing that elevates them for me. I think when you look at the attacking midfield position, Kulusevski, he's out injured a lot. Maddison is out injured a lot. This is a signing that I think is slightly needed for as long as they recruit in defensive midfield as well. And of course, Romero is rumoured to leave as well. So I think Van Heck would be a fantastic signing. Nathan Collins would be a fantastic signing. Who knows what they'll do. But is Eze needed? Not necessarily. But would Eze be fantastic at Spurs? Absolutely. If you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to smash a like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments where you think Tottenham Hotspur will win next season and whether or not Eberechi Eze should move. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.